Ladies and gentlemen, again, thank you so much for joining us. There's been the tragic tornadoes that hit yesterday afternoon, yesterday evening in a suburb of Oklahoma City, just north of where I sit in Austin, Texas. Austin is about where Tornado Alley ends. There are still tornadoes south of here, but the real decimation center, I don't know, 30-something people died a while back just north of Austin when a big tornado came through the suburb of Gerald. And I grew up in Dallas on Lake Ray Hubbard. Almost every year we would see tornadoes because you could see from the hill where we lived over the lake 20 miles or more. You could see the city off 30 miles away, so I guess about 30 miles. And sometimes you would see when the spring storms were right, 4 or 5 tornadoes, 1 3 miles away, scooning across the cow pastures and things, and then going out and hitting the lake and going from gray with debris and dirt and then turning blue-gray and becoming a water spout. In fact, I've seen 3 tornadoes at once in the lake, beautiful in a horrific way. And then off in the distance tornadoes. So I've had a lot of experience with tornadoes. And, growing up, I even had family that had tornado shelters, but you'd end up using it to basically store stuff in it as a storage shed. And of course, my aunt and uncle had a tornado shelter when I lived out in Llano. And I've told people, you should have a tornado shelter if you live in Tornado Alley. This year, they reported about a month ago, was the least amount of tornadoes so far for any spring they'd seen in decades. And every time there is a tornado, Al Gore and others say, hey, we need to have global carbon taxes because you're causing tornadoes. Tornadoes have always happened in many parts of the world where you have hot and cold air coming together. Africa, North America, Europe. The whole planet has had different types of storms. Kublai Khan was, and his fleet was, wiped out with the divine wind, the kamikaze. I think it was Kublai Khan. We can look that up. Several Chinese invasion fleets before the combustion engine was invented, hundreds of years before, were destroyed by typhoons or Pacific hurricanes. In the Atlantic, they're hurricanes. Pacific, they're typhoons. Typhoons can get up going faster because there's more hot water, bigger ocean. They debate the numbers, and I hope the lower numbers are accurate. Some numbers are 21 dead, hundreds wounded. A school was hit, as you know, a bunch of dead children. And that no waiting period, no 5-day waiting period will protect us from these tornadoes, just like Sandy Hook. The only thing that will protect you is preparation, like a storm shelter, like all public schools used to have. Now they build them the last 30 years without them. Because I guess it's extreme to have a storm shelter. Only kooks do that. But they are still trying to say conservatives and libertarians and people that don't want to have a global carbon tax paid to Warren Buffett and David Rockefeller and Lord Rothschild, it's our fault. Democratic Senator Whitehouse has said that it's the GOP's fault for the tornado. And we also have the creator of The Daily Show putting out a tweet saying that it's God-targeted conservatives. I mean, these people will make it political. By the way, I was listening in the radio this morning to 590, and I heard part of Obama's speech, and I've tried to find the transcript, I can't find it, where he talked about we've got Homeland Security, Janet Napolitano on the job, with the anti-terror forces helping, and then I can't find that in the news where they're equating it to Oklahoma City and the tragedy that Oklahoma City went through, but I heard him over and over again this morning say that. So I've got Watson ferreting about looking for that.
Hello, this is Hank Hill, and I'm telling you what, you need to listen to Alex Jones.
Yeah. Infowars.com, yeah.
My judge, what is the secret of the universe?
Infowars.com, yeah.
There are a lot of storms here in Central Texas, and looks like we could have some tornadoes, but God forbid anybody have a storm cellar or a storm shelter in their backyard because, well, that's passé. Only kooks do that. Up until the 1950s, you can look this up, all over Tornado Alley, from southern Illinois all the way down to central Texas. Tornado Alley officially ends down by about New Braunfels, Texas, south of Austin. And growing up, I mean, I grew up in Dallas, where almost every year people were killed by tornadoes. And I got to watch tornadoes, no exaggeration, probably 50 times in my life. I've been in Austin and on the highway and saw a giant tornado. I've been blown off the road, almost killed with my father, outside Fredericksburg, Texas, coming into Stonewall, slowed down about 40 miles an hour. Was going to pull over, and the tornado blew us off the road, and it was the state police that drug us out of the vehicle, the smashed vehicle, that said, "You're lucky you survived." And the tornado had torn up Stonewall and torn down power lines and overturned cars into Johnson City. In fact, I was sitting here about to talk about tornadoes and just remembered I was almost killed by a tornado. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people are killed a year by tornadoes. They've always been killed by the hundreds every year. My dad saw a tornado go across the street from his farmhouse and tear up his cousin's house when he was a kid. Just tear the whole house up like something out of The Wizard of Oz. Just grab oak trees like matchsticks and just throw them. And what is the government's answer? Call out the Army, have Obama grandstand, and promise a bunch of federal aid instead of having storm shelters at all of the schools. Oh, but you're not going to have zoning rules on that. You did until the 1950s, because that's an actual threat. More people die every year. You can pull these numbers up. From deer killing, it's over 250 on average. Hundreds die from honeybees, hundreds from wasps individually, each group. You can look these up. There's been news articles about it. And if you look at how many people die in mass shootings, about half of it's gang-related. It's 87 in 2012, and less than half of those were actually innocent people being killed and not gang war stuff. But the LA Times had the headline just 2 weeks ago of, as gun crime plummets, people think gun crime is up. And Forbes last week had the headline of, disarming facts, more guns, less crime. More guns, less crime. That's a fact. But again, there is the perception that there is an epidemic of gun violence in this country. And the truth is, there's only an epidemic in areas where they've disarmed the general public. So criminals flock there, because there's also always a welfare state where the victims have been disarmed, because it's government by and for criminals. And that's why we're so blessed to be on the radio on stations like 1530 in Chicago, which is a great old city, great museums, great people, great sports teams. I like Chicagoans. I got family that lives up there. My cousin Buckley lives up there, Buckley Hammond. But it is a mafia-run city, and things are only going to get worse. More cops won't save you. Army checkpoints won't save you. Only liberty and arming the people will run the criminals out of your city. Just like the Chicago has the highest crime rate in the world, the country with the highest crime rate per capita is Mexico. Good old Mexico. A beautiful country, really amazing culture in many respects, but also a culture of El Jefes, the chief, the big ones, dominating people forever. Since the time of the Aztecs, passing the baton to Cortez. And there's a 69% drop in wounding shootings, 39% in overall shootings since 1992, Justice Department's new numbers, and a 49% drop in violent crime. People say, well, how do you trust those government statistics? Well, I don't trust the labor statistics. They've been proven to be frauds by top economists. I know how they're frauds. I know what the real numbers are. See, I've studied the gun statistics. The crime statistics are the global model, U.S. crime statistics, set up by J. Edgar Hoover back in the 30s because they're compiled locally and publicly posted and then checked by statisticians and demographers at major universities, and they are the most cross-reference check numbers. And they're not perfect, because some crimes unreported and some things like that go on, but they're the best statistics in the world. The model, look it up, are FBI crime statistics. Got to give credit where credit's due to J. Edgar Hoover. When he wasn't dressed up in a flower skirt, he was, it's what he was a librarian, basically, a statistician. And Mexico has the highest crime rate in the world. It's over 60,000 dead now in the last 6 years. And of course, they're always finding mass graves, so it's probably a lot higher. The disappearances are over 50,000 on top of that, so it's probably more than 110,000. And once the lawlessness happens, rape whoever you want, rob whoever you want, shoot whoever you want. Because the police are corrupt on the payroll, or they're scared, and there's no justice. The only places now with lowering crime rates, and this even came out a few months ago in the Christian Science Monitor and a few other places, was where vigilantes with guns they got in the U.S., that's why they're not full auto or hand grenades or tanks like the government and the cartels, citizens have said, well, we might as well fight back. We're already being fed on. And all over central and northern Mexico, they're following the Chiapas model, but it's not communist. And they're following the example of Mormons that are down there, Mormon Mexicans, and they're fighting back. And guess what the cartels do? Guess what the kidnappers do? Guess what the criminal police do? They back down. Hey, you shoot my son for no reason? I'm going to find you, and I'm going to blow your head off, is what the Mexican Mormons have done, leading the way for liberty down there in Mexico. And I'm not Mormon. I'm giving credit where it's due. Vice, that's pretty much an anti-gun news site, but they do some good work. They've had to admit that as well. Yeah, Mexican vigilante seize town, arrest police. Huffington Post. They're done playing games. And that's who the Mexican government wants to stop from getting guns. But those people have nothing to lose because they get shaken down by the police and the drug cartels. The poorest people. I've been in Mexico just about 4 years ago visiting pyramids that I wanted to see. And I pull up. I was told it was a safe area in Yucatan. Been there probably 15 times in my life. I wanted to go see some pyramids. We're on a nice bus that left officially, from the tourist destination. And the military with machine guns walk out, aim their guns at the bus drivers as an act of domination like Boston. They get the guy out. He pleads with them. He opens their wallet. They take every bit of money of tips he'd gotten that day from a couple other trips. This was in the afternoon from different, 3-hour tours. And the guy got on the bus with tears in his eyes. I'm not going to live like that, and you don't want to live like that either. And that's where America is going to go, ladies and gentlemen. Where Mexican troops in a Jeep. By the way, I've been in Mexico when, my dad rented a Volkswagen with my mom, even before my sister was around. I'm 14 years older than my sister. And the Mexican police, pulled him over and said, I want a tip. My dad said, who can speak broken Spanish? Well, was I speeding? No. Pay me if you don't want trouble, gringo. And I'll never forget the guy smiling, that smile of tyranny, that satisfaction that I now see in more and more bureaucrats' eyes here, and that I see in North Korean video. And that I see in Nazi Germany film reels and Soviet film reels, the same look, the arrogant power trip, the swagger, the enjoyment that I saw on some of the Boston police face, threatening reporters and bugging their eyes out. And the guy had all these gold teeth. And he just looked at my dad and, pay me if you don't want trouble. And my dad said, how much? And he said, how much do you have? How much do you have? And people ask, how far will the tyranny go? That's what Thomas Jefferson said. The tyranny will go as far as you let it go. Until you say, I've got guns, I'm not looking for trouble, but you assault me or try to, I'm going to fight back, which is an inalienable, human, God-given base right. I don't care what stinking government people say in their fancy outfits. America, just like North Korea, just like Mexico, just like Nigeria, just like corrupt Eastern Europe, our police now dress. You know, for 70 years, they've had the foxes in Mexico. They were fans of the German government then, who got German Kurzel helmets. You go to Latin America, that's all they've always liked Kurzel helmets. The German Kurzel helmet of World War I. Pull up the Mexican foxes for 70 years, since the 30s. It's longer, almost 80 years. They wear black uniforms with black masks with Kurzel helmets. Kurzel helmets. And that's how our police now dress, with Kurzel helmets. Being a fascist is very sexy. And as you notice, this blight grows, America and prosperity dies. Many anthropologists and archaeologists believe that before man even discovered the power to harness and use fire, we were involved in agrarian activities. That is, taking the seeds of plants and then replanting them to produce more. The very foundation of our modern civilization and human culture is centered around the planting and cultivation of edible plants, fruits, vegetables, nuts, you name it. And the globalists have been going after gardening. They've been harassing people that have gardens in their front yards or their backyards. They've called for licenses for people to have gardens because you can't trust prisoners in the police state America to be able to grow their own food. That's why I've come to the realization that we need to become self-sufficient. You need to be informed. You need to have the Second Amendment to protect yourself. You need to be politically active to wake up others. You need to filter your water. But you also need to plant a garden. Even if you live in an apartment, you can do this. If you live in the countryside, obviously you can do it on a grand scale. There are so many green belts and areas that humans don't even visit, nearby cities and in suburbs, where people are now more and more planting their own little private gardens and meadows and off the side of the road. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a revolutionary act to unplug from the television, to unplug from the computer and all the globalist propaganda, and to go out in your backyard or your front yard or planters at your apartment or on the roof of the building where you live, and to plant a garden.
Here are some of the amazing deals at InfoWars Seed Center at InfoWarsShop.com. The Survival Seed Vault by My Patriot Supply features only the finest survival heirloom seeds for a robust and hardy garden, even in the toughest of times. The ARC All-in-One Seed Kit contains 70 varieties of 50,000 seeds of fruits, vegetables, medicinal, and culinary herbs. All ARC seeds are heirloom. Each type is labeled and sealed separately for ease of use and longevity. The Deluxe Emergency Seed Bank combines 3 of Emergency Seed Bank's top sellers: the Family Survival Emergency Seed Bank, the Medicinal Herb Seeds Pack, and the Culinary Herb Seeds Pack. We also have starter varieties of the deluxe seed packages for fruit, salad, salsa, peppers, and medicinal herbs and more. Go to the InfoWars Seed Center at InfoWarsShop.com.
A little seed can grow a huge tree that produces fruit for up to 50 years. We have the best life bombs. That's what these are. We have the best weapons against death out there at the lowest prices, waiting for you to lovingly plant them and lovingly grow them and lovingly eat them and share them with others. We will strike back against the New World Order, and this is only one more initiative in our fight against them. So please join us at InfoWarsShop.com, or you can link through at Infowars.com at the InfoWars Seed Center. You know, coming up, I'm going to open the phones up
Got the blues about
to get your take
Got the blues about
on just how despicable it is that the Daily Show creator came out in a tweet and said Tornado clearly targets conservatives. It's a total voodoo, these people. And Democratic senator uses Oklahoma tornado for anti-GOP rant. And again, we'll pull this article up. Record low amount of tornadoes in 2013 so far in the spring season. Like I just saw that number like 2 weeks ago. So we're going to be breaking that down in the next segment. I want to hear from Oklahomans, specifically if you're in Oklahoma City or the suburb that was hit, where there's reportedly, first they were saying 100 dead, then 51 dead, now 21 dead. We don't know the real numbers, but I hope it is the low ones, including up to 20 children in one facility in a school. So we'll look at all that. Yeah, there was the headline. The guys actually found it, put it up on the TV screen. USA Today, tornado activity hits 60-year low. The USA in the past 12 months has seen the fewest number of tornadoes since 1954, and the death toll from the dangerous storms have dropped dramatically since 2011. You know, and that's a big deal to say there's less tornadoes because now they have Doppler radar all over the country, and they know. And back in the 50s, they had to have spotters that marked them, and then put it, you know, into the files with the meteorological service. So a lot of the growth of tornadoes that Al Gore's been talking about was just that there's more people, and the science, you know, it knows if a tornado forms for 20 seconds. They've now got Doppler, and it becomes a record on the computer system. So even with all that, tornado activity is way down, which I actually, you know, there's all sorts of cycles, but I think that's creepy, that we've got record low tornado activity. There's a reason people built tornado shelters all over the country, because a lot of people got killed. And you survive a tornado, believe me, you go out and you build a shelter next time. And a lot of people did get to shelters outside Oklahoma City, but they had wooden roofs, metal roofs that just got torn right off, and they got sucked right out. You need a concrete roof. And I've had Joel Skousen, expert on shelters on, and I've had others on, and I got criticized last year and this year when I even put out free plans on the website. People are like, you fearmonger, we don't need a tornado shelter. Well, you haven't been almost killed by one like I have. I mean, I'll be honest, if it looks really stormy in the spring and I see green sky and weird clouds going together and looks like rotation, I'll get out my iPhone computer now and I'll check and see if there's any, you know, tornado warnings. And if there are, folks, I go find a bridge and I pull up and read a book or something. Because let me tell you, my uncle, I'm sitting at his house, we lived in Fredericksburg then, up on this beautiful Vista Hill, and my grandmother's out there, and we just had lunch. We're going to go shooting all day, target practicing. And he looked at me and he said, you guys better not shoot. You better go or stay. We're up on this hill. We could see thunderstorms off in the distance and clouds going together. And, you know, and he goes, yeah, this looks like tornado weather. It was a beautiful spring day. And I said, oh, we'll be all right. We're going to shoot some. And my grandmother said, no, we better go. So my grandmother, my wife, and my 2 children at the time all got in the car and drove back into Austin about an hour ahead of us. They missed the tornadoes and the storms. We shot for an hour. He goes, man, I'm telling you, that looks bad, because you could see the storms coming towards where the highway was. We didn't check any computers. You know, I don't think even had internet at that time. This is like 10 years ago, or it's about 9 years ago. And little did we know that off over the horizon, out past Fredericksburg and Stonewall, that's where the tornadoes would form, right when I went through it. And again, we were just blown off the road by a tornado, by the edge of one. The state police are like, yeah, you see that barn blown over? A barn 200 yards from where we got blown off the highway. It came across us, blew us off the highway, came by, blew us off the opposite direction, had just gone, and then went over, knocked a barn down, turned into Stonewall, and then went on into Johnson City. Of course, people listening around the country don't even know what that means, but that's where LBJ was born, in a log cabin with no power, no electricity. And so you better believe I got up here and I fearmongered about tornadoes, because our whole way of life is being gotten rid of over terrorism. It's provocateur, doesn't even really exist. It's very rare, and tornadoes are a real issue. Visit Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. When you're on the site, you can also tune in 24 hours a day to my daily radio broadcast. There's also a free iPhone app to listen to the syndicated radio show when and where you want.